To Catch a Thief. To Catch a Thief is a 1955 American romantic thriller film directed by Alfred Hitchcock from a screenplay by John Michael Hayes based on the 1952 novel of the same name by David Dodge. The film stars Cary Grant as a retired cat burglar who has to save his reformed reputation by catching an impostor preying on the wealthy tourists, including the daughter of a wealthy widow, played by Grace Kelly of the French Riviera. Plot: retired jewel thief John the Cat Roby is suspected by the police in a string of burglaries on the French Riviera. When they come to his hilltop villa to question him, he slips their grasp and heads to a restaurant owned by his friend Bertani. The restaurant's staff are members of Roby's old gang, who have been paroled for their work in the French resistance during World War II. They are angry at Roby because they are all under suspicion as long as the new cat is active. When the police arrive at the restaurant looking for Roby, Faussard's daughter spirits him to safety. Danielle is a young woman who fancies him dearly. Roby realizes he can prove his innocence by catching the new cat in the act. He enlists the aid of an insurance man, H. Hewson, who reluctantly discloses a list of the most expensive jewelry owners currently on the Riviera. American tourist Jessie Stevens, a wealthy nouveau riche widow, and her daughter Frances top the list. Roby strikes up a friendship with them. Frances feigns modesty at first, but kisses Roby at the end of the night before retiring to her room. The day after, Frances invites Roby to a swim at the beach, where Roby runs into Danielle. He keeps up his cover of being a wealthy American tourist, despite Danielle's jealous barbs about his interest in Frances. Frances accompanies Roby on a picnic to a villa where Roby suspects the new cat might break in. Frances reveals that she knows Roby's real identity. He initially denies it but concedes it that evening, when she has invited him to her room to watch a fireworks display. They kiss passionately. The next morning, Jessie discovers her jewels are gone. Frances accuses Roby of using her as a distraction so he could steal her mother's jewelry. The police are called, but by the time they reach Jessie's room, Roby has disappeared. Later, Roby is staking out an estate at night when he is attacked by an unknown assailant. A second attacker raises a wrench and appears to hit Roby, who falls off the estate's seawall into the water. But when the police reach the body in the water, it turns out to be Faussard, one of the staff at Bertani's restaurant. The police chief publicly announces that Faussard was the jewel thief, but, as Roby points out privately in the abashed Hewson's presence, this would have been impossible because Faussard had a wooden leg and could not climb on rooftops. Faussard's funeral is interrupted by Danielle's loud accusation that Roby is responsible for her father's death. Outside the graveyard, Frances apologizes to Roby and confesses her love. Roby asks Frances to arrange his attendance at a fancy masquerade ball where he believes the cat will strike again. Roby accompanies Frances to the ball dressed as a masked Moor. The police hover nearby. Upstairs, the cat burglar silently cleans out several jewel boxes. When Jessie addresses the Moor as John and asks him to go and get her heart pills, the authorities are tipped off as to his identity. Upon the masked Moor's return, the police wait as he and Frances dance together all night. When the masked Moor and Frances go to her room, the mask is removed. It was Hewson who switched places with Roby to conceal Roby's exit. Roby lurks on the rooftop, and his patience is finally rewarded when he spots a figure in black. However, just as his pursuit begins, the police throw a spotlight on him and demand he halt. He flees as they shoot at him, but he nonetheless manages to corner his foe with jewels in hand. Unmasked, his nemesis turns out to be Danielle. She loses her footing on the roof, but Roby grabs her hand before she can fall. While she hangs in his grasp, he forces her to confess to the police and admit that Bertani was the ringleader of this gang. Roby speeds back to his villa. Frances follows to convince him that she has a place in his life. He agrees but looks less than thrilled when she says, "Mother will love it up here." Cast: Cary Grant as John Roby the Cat, Grace Kelly as Frances Stevens, Jesse Royce Landis as Jesse Stevens, John Williams as H. Hewson, Charles Vainel as Monsieur Bertani, Bridget Auber as Daniel Faussard, Jean Martinelli as Faussard, Daniel's father, Georgette Ennis as Germaine housekeeper, René Blancard as Commissaire Lepic uncredited, Paul Newlin as Vegetable Man in Kitchen uncredited. Cast notes. Alfred Hitchcock makes his signature cameo approximately 10 minutes into the film as a bus passenger sitting next to Cary Grant. Production. To Catch a Thief was the director's first film of 5 made using the VistaVision widescreen process, and the last of the 3 Hitchcock films with Grace Kelly. The film was the penultimate collaboration with Cary Grant, only North by Northwest 1959 followed. It is also about a man with a mistaken identity who goes on a breakneck adventure to prove his innocence. The costumes were by Edith Head, including Kelly's memorable gold lame gown for the film's costume ball. The car driven by Grace Kelly was a metallic blue 1953 Sunbeam Alpine MKI. Locations. To Catch a Thief was filmed largely in the Paramount Studios, Hollywood, California, and on location in the Alpes Maritimes of southeastern France, on the Mediterranean coast. It included the resorts of Cannes, Nice, Villefranche-sur-Mer, and Saint-Genest. Crucial to the film's success in shooting on location was the presence of unit production manager C.O. Doc Erickson. He had developed a reputation for his work on prior Paramount films that had relied on a great amount of location photography, such as Shane 1953 and Secret of the Incas 1954. Erickson thoroughly researched the logistics of shooting in the south of France and communicated with Bill Mull, the production manager on Little Boy Lost 1953. Production credits. The production credits on the film were as follows. Director Alfred Hitchcock. Writing John Michael Hayes. Screenplay. Cinematography Robert Burks. Director of Photography. Art direction Hal Pereira and Joseph Macmillan Johnson. Art direction Samuel M. Comer and Arthur Krams. Set decoration Editor George Tomasini. Assistant Director Daniel Macaulay. Technicolor color consultant Richard Mueller. Special effects John P. Fulton. Special photographic effects Farsi Edwat. Process photography. Makeup supervision Wally Westmore. Sound recording Harold Louis and John Cope. Musical score Lynn Murray. Second unit director Herbert Coleman. Costumes Edith Head. Distribution. To Catch a Thief is the only Hitchcock film released by Paramount that is still owned and controlled by the company. The others were sold to Hitchcock in the early 1960s and are currently distributed by Universal Studios. Reception. The film drew mixed reviews from critics, with some enjoying Grant and Kelly in the lead roles as well as the French Riviera setting, while others expressed disappointment at the lack of suspense compared to earlier Hitchcock films. Bosley Crowther of the New York Times wrote in a positive review that the film comes off completely as a hit in the old Hitchcock style. Mr. Grant and Miss Kelly do grandly, especially in one sly seduction scene. Variety wrote that while the film was not the suspense piece one usually associated with the Alfred Hitchcock name, it was strong on sight and performance values, though it had some plot weaknesses and is not as smooth in the unfolding as one might expect from an opera presentation. Harrison's reports wrote, Alfred Hitchcock has not endowed the action with as much suspense as one. Richard L. Coe of the Washington Post called it one of those deluxe pictures in which everyone lives in glorious workless luxury on the French Riviera, looks wonderful, speaks amusingly, and is unconcerned with transit strikes or hurricanes. I loved every minute of it. Philip K. Schur of the Los Angeles Times was also positive, calling Grant. The Monthly Film Bulletin wrote, even a comedy thriller needs considerably more in the way of plain excitement and tension. Accolades. Robert Burks won the Academy Award for Best Cinematography, while Hal Pereira, Joseph Macmillan Johnson, Samuel M. Comer and Arthur Krams were nominated for Best Art Direction, and Edith Head was nominated for Best Costume Design. In 2002, American Film Institute included the film in AFI 100 Years. 100 Passions #46. Adaptations. In May 2018, it was announced that Viacom was set to adapt the film as a Spanish-language television series. It was launched in October 2019 as Atrapa ang Ladron.